Then it's
Good evening, sir.
good evening. Good evening.
How are you, sir? Uh,
Very
there is some
nice.
disturbance. I think,
There's some echo.
yeah, yeah. Because yeah, yeah. Now that's fine. So you'll have to unmute yourself, sir. Yeah. Yes. Now it's unmute. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We've just mute the audience so that there's no disturbance. Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good evening.
It's a privilege at LNT to have you here right now. Also, I would like to thank everyone, all the architects and interior designers who've joined us today. Well, before we start the introduction, I would quickly like to welcome and introduce none other than Mr. Anoop Bartaria from Sincere Architects and the chairman at World Trade Park Limited. He's the one who doesn't need any introduction. Still, I will quickly just run through some of the points for people who have missed on the bio which we have shared. Mr. Anoop Bartaria, gold medalist from Malavia Regional Engineering College, Jaipur, has started his career by working as assistant professor for 2 years in the Department of Structural Engineering in the same institution. With 25 years of experience, he is the man behind shopping complexes, multiplexes, discotheques, hotels, resorts, super special hospitals, and monumental structures to the city. He has completed projects worth rupees 6,000 crores and rupees 1,000 crores worth of projects are under execution of planning. As a pioneer for the development of the city, he has given many projects which has started new trends in the city of Jaipur. He is a person of multifaceted talents and made his mark with his expertise in the field of architecture, structural engineering, and urban designing. He is also a sculptor, an artist, a writer, and a true business visionary. Also, Anoop Bartaria is a key advisor to many state governments like Rajasthan, Punjab, Uttarakhand, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka for the design, planning, and policy making for the matters related to urban designing and infrastructural development. One can have a brief idea of his creative skills and some of his projects mentioned hereafter. That includes beautification of Amritsar, creation of heritage walk on the road leading to Harminder Sahib Golden Temple, World Trade Park, a multi-activity commercial park cum retail mall in the city of Jaipur, Gateway of Rajasthan, a project which depicts not only the architectural character but also the culture of Rajasthan and Jaipur, and beautification of modernization of Vrindavan Gardens, Seven Wonder Park in Kota, Rajasthan, beautification of roads, beautification and street facade development in Chandni Chowk, Delhi, and so on. We cannot complete with all his projects. So that is a short introduction for Sir here. So thank you so much, sir. Also, I would like to welcome Mr. Samir Chaudhary. He heads the department, so he would like to welcome you.
Good evening, Mr. Anoop. A very hearty welcome to you, and we are really privileged that you are there in this session of architectonic. I think this is our sixth session, and I'm happy to share with you that every time we come with a new topic, something very new comes. This time it is primarily heritage, and who else speaking about heritage other than the expert like you? So somebody who has worked on Harvinder Sahab, somebody who has worked on Vrindavan Gardens, and now Chandni Chowk. So I think one of the things which we all take pride in is our heritage and culture. And if we as a people or a society are able to take those values or those things which we actually inherited for so many years through our culture and heritage into our living, I think we'll make a beautiful life out of it. And you are actually helping all of us to do that. So once again, very hearty welcome. I will not bore much, and maybe I will pass on now to Ankita again to take the session forward. We all will be very eager to listen to you about how we actually are able to preserve our heritage, take our heritage into the contemporary or today's modern living, and maybe make a life where our culture, heritage also becomes a part of our life as we move on along with the modern thinking. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So before we start with the session, the audience, for the benefit of the larger audience, we would like to know the reason behind selecting the topic, which would be the relevance of heritage. So if you could just throw some light on it.
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. Put everybody on mute, please. Sorry for the disturbance, sir. You will have to unmute yourself. Sorry for the disturbance. So you'll have to unmute.
Yeah. Can you repeat what you said because I missed it
Oh,
because of the
sorry.
noise?
I'm sorry. So for the benefit of the larger audience, sir, we would like to know the reason behind selecting this topic, which is the relevance of heritage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Uh, First of all, a big thank you to all of you and to the people who have logged in, and it'll be a nice interaction. I hope the session will be interesting, and I congratulate LNT for this initiative because such initiatives certainly help us to improve ourselves and share our experiences and able to address to many. Okay, there's some noise coming.
One
Uh,
second,
Fine.
sir. I think there are people joining in, so they may be missed on the instructions
Fair
because.
enough, fair enough. So your question about what is the importance of this topic, relevance of heritage in contemporary architecture? Basically, architecture is a journey in which there is always a pursuit to, it is an answer to aspirations to our lifestyle. Whenever we are working, designing, we try, it just cannot be mapped by a single thought. It is a journey in which multiple variants play its role. And the various aspirations of people, the changing lifestyle of people, they all come about, and their language is the architecture of that place. So I would say it is not just designing elements, designing buildings, but it is assembly of various elements together which form a character of a place. And that character finally becomes the heritage of that place in due course. What is heritage today, what is contemporary today would become heritage tomorrow. So I see a very nice merger between the two aspects, that heritage and contemporary is just a time lapse. It is not that it is some different definition which can be given or some terminology to be given. Because probably, if I belong to the city of Jaipur, so I'm just quoting it, when Hawa Mahal was built, it was a contemporary structure. Today, it's a heritage structure. So heritage is important because it carries a sense of pride of our glorious past. And that sense of pride always gives us a feel of energy into our contemporary architecture. And because contemporary architecture has to undergo a lot of things, new inventions of materials, new functional requirements, architecture, interior designing is all like fashion, it changes. So you just cannot say that, but then the heritage becomes the character. It is your soul. The soul is the heritage of the place, and the body keeps on changing. So I would say contemporary architecture is a new language of what heritage was. It carries the same feelings which heritage elements do tell about the place, the character of the architecture of that place. So the point is why it is relevant. It is relevant because nothing new can be created unless we look upon our past. So heritage carries the experiences, the values of our past into today, and these values will be carried into tomorrow when this contemporary art will become heritage. So I think it's a very relevant topic. You can do wonders on this. You can have various historical events which govern the styling of heritage architecture. You have merging of cultures taking place, which reflects into architecture. For example, if you look into the history of Indian architecture, right from the Ashokan age, when things were being developed, the types of arches which were being developed, when it came about, later on, when there was a Greek intrusion into the country and there was some exchange of culture, you found that some of the Indian elements started using some Greek elements and Roman elements also. So later on, when during the 500 to 1000 AD period, you found that it is the temple architecture which took the prominence into the architectural elements of our country. Then the invasion of Islam and the Mughal period came, and you got the domes and arches and things like that. Then became the merger. So various cultures. Then the British came, so British elements started getting merged into Indian architecture. So these historical events play a huge role in creating elements and their definitions. And for example, if you see the architecture of Jaipur, it is very much temple architecture merged with Mughal architecture. And the similar way, if you see Agra, you will find it's a Mughal architecture merged with some Jaipur architecture in that. So cultural mix form the basis of heritage, and that's how historical influences carry in our future. And we take a sense of pride. For example, you see a particular place, it has a style of architecture. So you are able to carry that style with a sense of pride. And that is why, suppose even if I'm doing a modern building, I don't hesitate to use an element of heritage into it so that I'm able to carry the feelings of association with my past and the sense of pride which it carries with it. So use elements which are full of energy, and heritage has that energy. So it is relevant in contemporary architecture.
So very well said. I think that is a good brief for the audience regarding what the topic is going to evolve around. Sir, you mentioned about Hawa Mahal, like when it was created, it was modern and now it's a heritage. And you also mentioned a very important point that although we are, it's like a fashion, it keeps changing. And but at the same time, we have to look into our past. So with the urbanization coming into the picture, how do you think, according to you, would be the significance of heritage in the urban architecture? So we've spoken about the contemporary thing, but how important and relevant would be in the urban architecture, sir?
See, the basic definition of urban architecture starts from the fact that it has a representative value. And that represented, say, for example, the urban architecture of London is different from the urban architecture of Jaipur. The urban architecture of Mysore is different from that of Calcutta. So every region has a definition, and every region becomes to be known by a character of that place. So architecture and it's our identity. And you can be identical with many buildings around the world, but more or less you have to carry this identity with you. That is why in urban architecture, my most of the experimentations in urban scape has been that I might be doing very modern and futuristic buildings, but at the same times when I'm designing cities and when I'm designing the roads, I try and keep the heritage of that place as a predominant element to be used on such places which are public places, so that the character of the and the history is carried along with us. So if you see, I think changing times happen like if you see various cities like Eiffel Tower, when it was built in Paris, it was just a structure which was built for a fair, and it was a temporary structure. But at that time, that it is being built for a 2 3 months long fair. But then it became the face of the city. So heritage has a huge value when you combine up things and when you put things on the street. You are able to define the character of the city. So urban architecture and heritage are virtually hand in glove. They have to be merged together, and whatever heritage is coming uh, based on the history of that place, it should be carried in future. It gets enriched from day on. And it has a huge relevance. I have done some various experiments, and I'd like to show you some slides, if possible, if they can
Sure.
link up,
Sure.
which you can see how urbanscape changed. And you referred to my project in Amritsar. Now, during the course of urbanization, what happened is some functional needs came up. People changed. Somebody changed to a glass window. Somebody changed to a modern day things, and it was posted upon the old wooden architecture which was there in the streets. So a lot of heritage architecture was lost due to urbanization because of the functional needs. And we are actually governed by the necessity of the day. That is the role of an architect or a designer, that the necessity of the day should be answered, keeping in value of the heritage architecture. Normally, the shortcut routes are taken, and we forget that while doing and answering the needs of functions of the day, we forget what was our character. So in urban architecture, I did an experiment in which I changed the street heritage walk of the Amritsar street leading to Golden Temple. So I would like to show some slide. Suppose another example is this. Like Hawa Mahal, which I showed you, is a heritage value for Jaipur. Now I created an urban scape. Now this is a creation by me on the same road which leads to the walled city, the JLN road, and it ends here. So this is a modern day structure, but having a heritage value, in which I combined various heritage elements and created this urban scape. It is a gateway to the history of Rajasthan, and it has been created just 10 years back. It started, and now it has been completed. So this heritage created a lot of value addition on the roads of Jaipur. This is how you can contribute, carry your history together. Furthermore, if I just go through these slides and come to I'll not come on. These are the various paintings which I used in Urbanscape. This is the gateway on the road, and you will find beautiful fresco work being done on the walls, use of arches. So these are the heritage arches which was used. And then I made my own designs, changed the form of arches, changed the form of elements, and created something unique, which will form like this chhatri which you are seeing was created with a multiple dome chhatri, which was not done earlier. But I created this chhatri to be an example. And now I see many of the people are copying this chhatri, thinking that it is a 100-year-old architecture, whereas it was just created 10 years back. So because the language was similar, because the character and the definition was similar. So this is how heritage plays an important part by its definition of elements, and people start doing things. I like my team to put it on the Amritsar site, which you will find it very interesting about how an urban and heritage link is established. Just a minute, I think they're just loading it up.
No problem, sir.
And yeah, I hope everybody's seeing the slides.
Yes, sir. It's clear. Yeah. I would request everybody else to put your videos off and audios on mute so that we can see the visuals. I would request Mr. Das if you could just put your video off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has the slide come? Yeah.
Yeah.
So now in Amritsar, you know what was the challenge which I was undergoing? The urban facade of the street was very spoiled, and somebody had put a big hoarding in front of his house. Somebody has put a big board. Somebody has put up a electricity box. Now you just have a look at this. There is a building which was made on the heritage street, and I was not happy with this building. And when I was changing the street, I couldn't change the entire shopping complex because the shopping complex was functioning with the modern day 1950, 1960 contemporary architecture. But because I was trying to give it a heritage look to the street, so I thought, why not change the skin of this building? And the picture which you're seeing on the right side is the same building converted into this building in 300 days. And it became a statement of heritage architecture, in which the domes, the chhatris were taken quite in relevance with the architecture used in Golden Temple. So you can see a change which happened. Next. Now this is the same thing, and how these courts were being designed, and this is the street. And if you will see that this street was very shabby when we started the project, but then when we added these elements, added some sculptures, added the cultural mix onto the streets, because heritage architecture and urban architecture is not just by creating good lines, creating neat construction, but also carrying a feeling with it. And these feelings were carried by sense of association, like there is a Bhangra sculpture having a dance there, there is a Gidda sculpture dance there. Next. So you would find now this is this is the real-time photograph of the street of leading to Amritsar, which was a very crowded street. But I created a pedestrian walk by creating new style of lighting, new style of facades, and that's how it was changed, adding some plants, adding some sculptures. Next. So you can see how the roads have changed. This is now what Amritsar is about, the Golden Walk. You can see this was an old parking structure, which is one of the largest LED screen up there. I used the element of jalis and created that heritage face to the facades of the building adjoining the road, which virtually changed the very feel. Now, there were certain rotaries. It was something very interesting that when I created this Maharaja Ranjit Singh statue at Amritsar, I used the entire history of Punjab in the pedestal, created and carved in marble, and put it in center of the road. So it carried a long historical reference to the Punjab area, and Maharaja Ranjit Singh was stationed at this junction leading to Harminder Sahib, and it was really appreciated, and it carried the pride of people of Punjab with it. Next. Now you can see how the street got changed. This is how I changed the old town hall, which had a British influence. And I changed the lighting, and I refurbished this entire structure and created a new impact of this structure with development of this court and all. Yeah, this is how I created a parliament model on the street, the sculptures of Bhangra in front of the people. So people come and dance, pose out here, how the streets of a city can change. And if you go into some before and after looks, you'll be really happy. Putting these statues, using some nice lights with flower baskets, and still it is maintained. That's the beauty of it. Can you see the street in front? It's a very crowded street, but
Yes.
it's a total structures on the sides. Next. This was a very shabby wall.
Sorry
And
to.
I used the Nanak Shahi bricks, and using the local material created this facade. Next. This is the famous Jallianwala Bagh. So I found that at the street, the Jallianwala Bagh was there, and we didn't have any sculpture to represent the feelings of the people who died there. So I created anonymous faces of 382 people who gave their life for our country and ignited the flame of freedom. Now see the street on the left side and see the street on the right side. Same camera angle, what it was earlier and what it is now. Next. See this change. This is how, if you see that parking structure behind the statue, you will find that it was a modern day building, but spoiled up, and it was not relevant to the local architecture of the place. So I brought in heritage into urbanscape, and then this magic was created. You see how the streets were. Can you see some of those wires, those hoardings? And I just did some paintings on the wall, gave them a color wash, treated their shops in a different way. So the look of the street changed. This is how our country can change. This is how architecture can make a difference. Now, this is a very important slide. See the shops, how they were.
Mm-hmm.
In urbanization, what happened? Somebody put up a hoarding, there was a shade requirement, somebody put up a board of its own nature, somebody put a AC box outside. So urbanscape was destroyed. And when the same shops exist, the same shops, we didn't do anything inside the shop, just the face of the shop we changed, and we created a better street. That is how heritage plays. Now look at this, there was a beautiful wooden architecture on the streets of Amritsar. In the curve, you can see a large wooden balcony, which was existing, but spoiled by some hoarding, spoiled by some wiring, some tanks placed here and there, but it was restored, and you can see the wall paintings which I did in the style of Harminder Sahib artwork which was done, and that is how the streets get changed. So how do we change areas? This is important. And when we design up, these elements were used from the temple, and from the Gurudwara, and we use these elements in the outer streets of this place, and this is how we changed Amritsar quite a lot. So you might have got some feel of how urban architecture heritage can add value to urban architecture. I hope I have been able to answer the value of heritage into urban scape. It gives you a huge sense of pride. It gives you why do people take examples of old conventional European cities and all? They have not forgotten their heritage. In modernization, they have continued with their heritage styling. Every place has its own heritage because heritage is not limited to a particular style. It has evolves out of that area. For example, I'll just give you, it is dependent on material of that area also. If you go to some place like Kathmandu, you have wooden architecture heritage. You go to Mediterranean coast in Europe, you have beautiful Italian marbles. And the Roman Empire had a wonderful Italian marble which was easily carvable. So you would find the development of pillars.
So we'll have to unmute. Sorry for that. I think somebody forgot to put it on mute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So various regions, because of their local material, create their own heritage. For example, if you go towards South India, you have a wonderful granite availability there, which was a local material at that point. So now materials have become universal and global. So when temples in South India were found, you will find granite was the core. Soapstone was very much available. So you in Karnataka, Helibidu and in Hampi, you will find soapstone sculptures, beautiful temples being made up. Granite was a source, so the temple columns were not so intricately carved, but shapes were given. You come to area like Rajasthan, in which sandstone was available. So most of the forts used that sandstone materials. So the character developed out of the material of the place. As I was quoting in the Roman Empire, the Mediterranean coast stone, which is now popularly known as Italian, Greek marble, Egyptian marbles, and all those types, Turkish marble, they were very easily carvable. So you found such types of Corinthian pillars and these things to be used. But in today's world, what has happened? Material has become a global factor. Whatever we produce today is actually transportable everywhere, which was not done earlier. Whatever we produce today is marketed everywhere. So what is happening is what material has been used in Dubai or what has been used in Shanghai is quite similar. Probably what material I have used in World Trade Park, Jaipur, is quite similar to what has been used in the Rolex building in Dubai. So the glass becomes a universal material, the aluminum becomes a universal material. So most of the urban scape development which is happening across the globe is losing its local character and becoming more global. So here is a challenge in front of us that while we are going global into architecture, while we are going global into because same material is marketed in America and same material is marketed in India. So
True.
the architects also start using the same way. Now here is the challenge where we should carry our heritage architecture along with it. I don't say that we do not experiment with those materials because I have been doing both. And I love to do both because both are actually complementing each other. And the value is we coexist. So urbanscape is a result of a lot of things which comes out, and heritage has its value in that.
Thank you so much, sir. We do have questions from our audience. We will take that up later. But since you mentioned this, you did mention that it took you 300 days to finish the beautification of the Golden Temple. And I'm sure that included dealing with different stakeholders from the government of Punjab to those 150 residents you were talking with. So that itself is a huge task in its own. For the benefit of our architect friends over here, so the philosophy which you've used of heritage design, how can it be used in modern contemporary design, which demands high level of functionality? Because there would be, some tricks and traits of the
Yeah.
you would want to share with them? Yeah.
See, I would first of all start with this fact that modern architecture is not just a result of the functional need. And it is also wrong to say that heritage is not able to satisfy your functional needs. Heritage can also satisfy your functional needs today. But yes, modern day architecture has the type of construction techniques which have come in. And the easier way of construction that was more labor intensive, they were more intensive to more hand jobs and things which are not less machinable. Now even those machines have been developed. So modern day architecture certainly requires functional spaces. Like probably 500 years ago, you would not have found a 100-meter span building or a building which is having a single hall of 30, 40 meter single span. So these all things have now come because of the construction techniques and the availability of new materials which we have. Functional needs get satisfied into this, no doubt. And it is not wrong to create modern buildings. When I advocate heritage, I do not at all say that modern day structures should not be done. They should equally be done. But heritage should not be forgotten. So we have to live in this world together, carrying our past into the present, because what we are creating today will become past tomorrow.
Yes.
So as a matter of fact, modern day buildings are subject to certain challenges of a global character. As I was telling you, that probably I'll show you some slide on some modern day buildings which I have done, and then I'll answer this question.
Sure.
I'd like to show you my creation, World Trade Park.
Yeah.
I think I'll ask the team to just come at that, and you will find that any modern day structure, if it is built in with some heritage value here and there, it actually adds value. And art and creativity cannot be defined by giving it a nomenclature of heritage or contemporary or classical or neoclassical or Victorian. These are all terminologies or languages. What is more important is the architecture is not dependent on languages. Architecture is creativity, which I hope it is the language itself. It doesn't require any nomenclature. You see the Taj Mahal, it has a beautiful sense of symmetry. And symmetry is common to modern day architecture and to heritage architecture. Now, this is the World Trade Park. It has a huge sense of symmetry. It is almost half a kilometer long building. And you will find that this sense of symmetry, when I was playing with it, I thought that this symmetry should be actually disturbed. So I created an element on the right side of it, disturbing the symmetry of it, so that the symmetry becomes the background and the disturbing elements becomes the face value. So many times, to highlight symmetry, I created a structure which was asymmetrical on the front side and symmetrical at the back side. So this is how the modern day architecture, what I'm trying to highlight with you is that the principle of design is based on visual impact and creativity. Now, creativity can be defined with lots of things. It can have heritage, it can have modern day material. Now, what is this today will be heritage tomorrow. So, as I was saying, Hawa Mahal was heritage years back, and now Hawa Mahal was modern building when it was built, and now it is heritage. So, the only thing which we are trying to do is, and I appeal to all the architects, that when they are doing modern day structures, they should not be, this is a very wonderful slide which you can see, we coexist. A person sitting in Indian turban in front of this modern day building relates to how our old values and new values combine. Because architectural is the answer of aspirations of the changing lifestyle of people. It is just like fashion. Look at this. There is a bullock cart of camel cart, not a bullock cart, it's a camel cart in front of World Trade Park. So this is what I can say, we coexist. That doesn't demean the camel cart. But the beauty is of being together. Inside, you will find people really enjoying a Costa or a Starbucks coffee in the heritage style. So, what is important is in modern day buildings, your feelings are your feelings which exist with you since ages. They remain in you. Your heart is the same, your type of usage is the same. All you are doing is easing your process, making it more convenient, making it more modern, building it with a lot of technology. L&T, you are one of the pioneer companies in technology. And modern day buildings are basically machines. I don't say them, they are buildings. And heritage doesn't mean that I should forget the advantages of modern day technology. I should use that. I will quote you a very nice example in the same building, World Trade Park. When I was doing the Marks and Spencer showroom, there was a heritage corridor in it. And the heritage corridor, many architects from UK who represent Marks and Spencer brand, and they said we have a universal design in the entire world of our showroom. So it will be very difficult for us to carry this heritage design inside our showroom, which is Jaipur architecture. I had a dialogue with the architects, and finally I was able to convince them that let us have one store which carries the Jaipur architecture in Marks and Spencer store. They did that store in my World Trade Park. And I think that's one of their most popular stores now. And they really are proud of marketing the photographs of this store worldwide. So it is, how you carry things together. I hope if my team can put up that photograph, it will be very nice. So modern day buildings in interiors, suppose I'm doing a glass building, and in the landscape, I put down a chhatri somewhere. I'm carrying my heritage as an energy element. So the energy element can be added by a few things. Now this is that store which was it was a beautiful street which is now an M&S store, and the same street is done up in the Jaipur architecture. So you can see various streets I experimented it and created into different style of architecture, some in Egyptian, some in Roman, some in Mexican style and all. So architecture can be a mix of global heritage. Many times when we talk of heritage, we are very selfish. We try and look into things which are very close to us or owned by us. But there is a value of global heritage. And when we talk of global heritage, we should not hesitate to mix what Persian architecture was, what Gothic architecture was, what Roman architecture was. We should try and experiment heritage architecture of various types of globe, but in a new creative form. It should not be cut, copy, paste. It should always innovate new shapes. And I think I will appeal to all the architects who must be on the board that we have to create a mindset to use architectural elements in their originality, but in a new form. You have to keep them identical to their style, but maintain their new identity, create their new identity also. You have to maintain their uniqueness, but you have to keep them united with what you are doing at the moment. Your new architecture, it should not be just cut, copy, paste that I've created I should not create a pantheon back into some new Greek architecture, but I should use the element of pantheon and create something new. So using heritage architectural element is more important in a new style. So modern day buildings should be there. So I showed some modern day building to you.
Yeah, I'm sure those pictures were a treat for our eyes. And since you talked, you spoke about how people. You've represented a few people and how they connect with the modern architecture. I would like to take a question from the audience. Architect Sweshka Yadav, sir, she has a question, and her question says, Sir, would certainly appreciate your approach for reviving the concept of belongingness and heritage. But what do you consider prime? The activities, people adding color and vitality to the public realm, or just the architectural elements for revitalization?
See, architectural or any creation cannot be defined by few or single elements. You know, you can add color to it, you can add new elements to it. So sense of belonging does not deter you from the fact that what you are creating cannot have new mutations. There are multiple variants which you can work on. And I think there are many experiments which I have done by using an element and adding new colors and new style of elements to the new creations, but carrying somewhere in my subconscious mind the heritage element. So the sense of belonging should not be a, a breaker or a wall which stops you in creating new things. Sense of belonging should be taken to new horizons. That's the art of an architect, that how he carries the style and creates something new. So that will and expertise to do something new, carrying the same old feelings together, adding new elements, new colors, new style. If something is known for its own character, I don't mind changing that character, but the story is all about visual impact. All what you do should have a visual impact. And that should create a positive visual impact.
True. I think you've so very well answered that question. So we also have a question from Ms. Akriti. She says, talking of importance of heritage in the modern world, would Sir like to put light on the fact that how can this practice be embraced in small scale projects like a small apartment or an office?
A very good question, I would say. See, when you use an office, most of the thing one should realize it. Every creation has its own communication. So, suppose I'm doing a residential apartment, and some heritage I want to carry it along. I would just give you an example. The gateway of Rajasthan, which I showed you, became one of the interior driving element to a company United States. So what it photographed this building and created a wall mural of that into a modern day apartment in America, in New York. A building in Jaipur in urban architecture is taken to America, creating a wallscape of it. You would have seen many Indian buildings or interiors and office interior carrying the Manhattan urban scape. I was happy that an American apartment used my building as a wallscape. This interior company in America created cushions and sofa fabric using the print of this heritage architecture which I created here. So if I'm doing an office or an apartment, I can use various elements into different elements. I can create a cushion cover of that heritage. I can create a wall paper of that heritage. I can create just one element on the wall, like a hanging. So my modern day architecture or modern day needs can be supplemented with the energy elements of these heritage items, which I can place. That's the expertise of the interior designer and architect, how he places this and create a good visual impact. So when you are doing an apartment, the architect who have asked this question, you should not hesitate to use these elements as your elements of decor. You can use them as energy points. They all together can create an environment for you. If you're doing an office, you can create some wall. And heritage, if it is local of Indian style, heritage can be of British style also. You can do a Renaissance period British building, which will be an heritage building. So there's so many things which are done. You can use these elements into them.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, we have spoken about how to use heritage elements in modern design to create heritage structure. I would want to know, for the benefit of the larger audience, How important, sir, do you think does the modern material and constructional practices play while creating a heritage structure? We spoke about modern heritage elements in modern structure. If we just take it vice versa, how important does a modern material play in heritage structure?
It is, the biggest advantage in modern day construction practice is the construction technology combined with the materials which are available. And nowadays, what is happening is every material can be processed into different ways. So probably, if you take marble, earlier marble was used as marble. Now you have more than 50 finishes of marble or even more. So you can shot blast them, you can sandblast them, you can flame them, you can do this, you can wave them up. So modern day construction elements, these materials has a power of being processed into different forms, which gives us the advantage of using these materials into a particular fashion. Now, modern technology creating heritage. For example, if I was building the Amer Fort today, suppose Amer Fort was built 300 years back, 280 years back. If I'm building it today, probably I would use a different construction material and create a same visual impact. I might not use a wall which is 10 feet wide, but I would use probably an RCC shell and create that impact of shape and size. So modern day materials, if you see, if I have to create Hawa Mahal today, probably I might not be using lime plaster. I would directly go for a precast, pre-molded technology, create molds in GRC or something and clad it up. So what is happening is the modern day materials gives you a huge amount of spectrum of horizon in which I can experiment materials into different way. Rather, today we are more equipped to create those heritage buildings in a better way than what we were earlier at the moment, at that time. So modern construction technology can create a heritage in a better way. So heritage is what? It's just a character. It's just a styling.
Yeah.
As I told you, it's fashion. So if I want to create a 1960 bell-bottom pant, I think the textile industry can do it much better and faster today. So it is something like if you have the zari work to be done. Earlier, the zari sari used to be made in 6 months. Today, you have machines to do it. You can do it in 6 hours, but still create the same impact. So is architecture. Create the same styling with modern day technology. So it is very helpful.
Thank you so much, sir. Ms. Yadav has a question, sir. Ms. Yadav, I would like to invite you if you could ask the question to sir. Maybe you can explain it to him in a better way. You can keep your video on, or maybe you can just keep your audio and ask your question. Ms. Yadav, am I audible to you? Ms. Sveshka Yadav, sir, the one who had asked the question before, she has another question again. So I was just inviting her to have a chat with us here.
Hello.
Yes,
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Indeed, it's a very good discussion that we are having to keep the culture and heritage intact. It's very pretty evident from your projects. I just wanted to ask that when we're talking about the urban architecture, do you consider the streetscapes, the facades, the utmost or the prime consideration to refine the imageability of that particular area? I mean, the square plazas, as I have seen in your projects, it had been majorly the streets, the facades, the character of those areas, and these had been the common spaces since ages, the congregation spaces. So, do you think that the public realm can be easily and more vitally defined through these kind of projects in urban areas?
Yeah, they are important elements of urban architecture. And the facades create the first value and it creates the atmosphere which we desire. So these courts, these rotaries, these urban facades, which you are referring to, they are important into urban architecture, because urban architecture has, what is urban architecture? Is what you see. The urban scape is something what you are, as if painting a place with your imagination. And when you paint up or when you create something, you need elements and you need such buildings, such facades to contribute to the urban look of it. So I really pay importance to the facades, because I don't say they are the only thing, but yes, they are very important. They create an impact on the urban scape, and the urban scape is largely, the character of this urban scape is actually determined by the facade and not by the inside of the buildings. The courts, the roads, the rotaries, the various elements put on the streets make a character of the place, and that's how the urban identification takes place of that scape. So facade, skyline, everything important. Like Dubai came to be known for the Sheikh Zayed Road, which it created. And you will find that, okay, the tall buildings in a row became the urban facade of that. And the character of the Dubai means the urban architecture of Dubai, you are able to identify. So Shanghai and new experimental cities which came up, they started following a similar pattern. In my designs, you'll find that I have used, wherever modernity was to be used, I used modern facades, but I combined more with the heritage value architecture. When I'm doing Mysore, Vrindavan Gardens, I took the Carnatic architecture as my predominant statement. When I'm doing Jaipur, I took Rajasthan architecture. When I did Amritsar, I used Punjab architecture. So architecture of the place in creation of facade elements and courts has a huge importance, and we should not disturb that character and use it to define our urban scape.
So true, so true. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Yadav. Sir, we have Architect Jha says that it's really nice to hear you, sir, when we talk about conserving the heritage. Can we say it is as carrying the heritage forward in any form which is feasible for the project?
Feasibility is the two things: feasibility technically and feasibility financially.
Yeah.
So many times you can carry a lot of things in this form, but heritage architecture is, there's a misconception that it is not feasible to do. We have actually, in this pursuit of our journey to create something new, what has happened is the artisans and the craftsmen which were there, which were a predominant workforce, which used to do this type of heritage architecture or whatever styling which used to do become a character of that place, that workforce is actually depleting. So this is the challenge to our urban scape with heritage architecture or buildings or inside buildings. We need to, that's why I normally try and protect the artisans and try and promote them so that their generations and generations are sticking to their art. If I'm not missing the question was largely related to the feasibility with respect to technical or financial, and the third dimension too is the skill. So the skill is dependent on the workforce. So if I am devoid of the skilled people, I will not be able to create. So that feasibility doesn't exist. If I'm devoid of finances and it takes larger cost to do it, probably. Technology is better available, but then I should have the technology handy. I should be developing machines. Now you will find that most of the machines are developing themselves for cutting marbles into their heritage style. Now technology has also adopted mutation within their own machine processing that they're able to create that. So feasibility technically, financially, and skill-wise. So we have to carry the skilled people most importantly with us, because then only these aspects of, I'll just, in pursuit of this question, I'll show you one residence I'm doing at Jaipur, which is and I'll just show you some effects of it. That when I was designing this, and I sketched, and when I sketched, my first question came, sir, ye kaise banega? So then I had that task of people coming in who were expert in, now suppose this is an under construction site, but it will give you a lot of education. There was a 35-foot entry lobby to a residence. Now this is a residence. And the arches which were done and the parabolic roofs and the hyperbolic curves which I designed on the roof. So I needed experts, not by machines, but by hand who could do it. So here my feasibility was dependent on the skill of my workmen. I gave them the techniques to do it, but the skill of that workman became more important element to make it feasible. So now I was designing a roof in which I wanted to create a stair going into the roof, and the roof was like a pleated wings. Now, when I talked to my contractors, it was difficult for them to, it is cannot be done like a simple machine. It's not just that any contractor will come and do it. So we created molds in wax. We created things, explained them. Creating architecture and interiors is a continuous exercise of teaching to the workmen also. You know, the architects and interior designers should get to their task of involving the workmen and work them with like a labor. I don't hesitate that when I go to my sites, I consider myself as the first labor of the site and start working with my workmen. And then I teach my designs to my workmen, and then they're able to create some magic for me. So feasibility is largely dependent upon the skill. When I was, for example, I was doing in the same house, that was a very Roman house, but because the temple was Indian and we have to worship Indian God, not Roman God, so I created an Indian style temple there. And now the roof was in stone. There were people coming and saying, okay, we'll do it in POP in this. No, I wanted a stone roof. Now inside on the second story, creating a stone roof was difficult, but my stone artisans, I discussed with them, got them placed, and this was joined without any, it was like an all male-female joints without any cement and all. So my confidence in my workmen made my ideas feasible. So what I'm trying to answer this question is that feasibility is dependent on your executability of the ideas, your team which works, and you have to work together to make it feasible. Finance and technology, they are all easy things. They can always be mustered. But your workman skill is your biggest tool for feasibility of any design which you do. Next. Yeah. I hope I've answered that question.
Yes, sir. And I saw, if I'm not mistaken, this project is in Jaipur, which you showed.
Yeah,
it's Lodha Group Residence.
Pardon?
It's a Lodha Group Residence, if I'm not wrong.
Lodha Group Residence is different. This is Ram Nawal's residence. I'll show you the Lodha Group Residence also. It is also a very different project.
Yeah.
And in which I'll show you that. Some very interesting things are done in that residence also.
It looks similar to me, so maybe I thought I'll ask you if that's the same project.
Very, very nice. I'm very happy that you know it by the name of one of my clients. So yeah. Very nice of you. The Lodha Group residence is slightly different from this. That was the residence which was planned next. This was the residence which was for the Lodha Group, which we're doing now. It is a very British architecture. And when I use this, this is a interior lobby of that when we entered. This is my first sketch which I did. And I created a huge dome. And this is a curved staircase on both the sides with a grand arch and a dome in top of it. So this has certain similarity, but then use of materials and all were different. And so there are certain amount of similarities. But this is one street which was used, there is a house next to it was also being designed by me. So I thought that I will suddenly change the character of the house. So I created a British palace on one side for Mr. Lodha, and I'm creating a Scottish villa on the other side, which is with tapered roofs and all. And I use wooden stone in that, and here I use white. So the combination effect was different.
Yeah. To be very honest, sir, the reason I know of this project is because our L&D switches are going in this
Oh,
project. So,
L&D
yeah.
must be going in a number of places. You are the leaders in the market, so certainly.
So, yeah, so coming to our next question, before that, Ms. Shefali, we would come up to your question, but before that, I will ask our next question, which might answer your question because it's in link with that. Sir, we have spoken about heritage and contemporary, and so would it be fair to say that heritage and contemporary designs coexist without losing the essence of both the worlds? Would it be fair enough to say that?
I think you're very fair in saying that.
Yeah,
What
and
is a $1 million statement. Contemporary and heritage coexist. They'll always coexist.
yeah,
And
so
architect's duty is that, because as I told you, what is contemporary today will be heritage tomorrow.
correct. So, and sir, having said that, sir, could you please share your views on global heritage architecture and its application in Indian context? Post this, Ms. Shefali will take your question because this was related to your question. So, sir, if you could just throw some light on that, the global heritage architect and its application in Indian context.
Yeah. See, heritage is, as I told you, is a character of a particular region. That is the character, that's the definition. And it develops by its history, by its materials. Multiple variants define and develop a character of a place. Now, in today's age, what is happening is that suppose I was designing a building 200 years back, my field of exposure and knowledge was limited because of communication. Now, the information technology has brought the world together, and we are not individual communities as what we were in earlier times. We are a single community in the entire globe. So our thought process have started converging. Our use of material has started converging. So global heritage is something, there is a unique style with various regions. Like if I go to Greece, my style and my color schemes are different. They might be using a white and blue thing. If I go to Jaipur, I'm using pink. If I go to some other city, I might be using some different style. So various styles of architecture. If I go to Iran and I go to study the old buildings, this Persian architecture, very rich architecture, they have their own style. They were using some Firozi colored tiles and elements of certain colors into their buildings. What has happened now is various elements of art. Architecture is a journey of art. So those elements of art can be assimilated because now the technology is there, now the know-how is there. Probably when Maharaja Jai Singh was building Jaipur, he might not have been exposed to the Persian architecture or to the Moroccan architecture. So the elements and influence of Moroccan architecture into Jaipur architecture does not exist. But in today's time, you are influenced by so many people. We travel around so much. The world is one community. So now the uniqueness of a particular region and styling being limited to themselves does not remain. We interact, we see things, we like things. You won't hesitate to create a Moscow, St. Peter's onion domes out here. So the exposure, the transfer of information technology has made global heritage of a particular place global. As I was telling you, Jaipur architecture being used in America. I was just having a chat when Prince Charles was here in Jaipur, and we were having a banquet, a dinner at the City Palace, and he was chatting on Jaipur architecture. So I requested him, he give me a chance that in London, I have got so many British buildings in India, but I do not have a Rajasthani architecture building in London. So I asked him that why can't we create a Rajasthani architecture building in some of the some streets of London? And then my interaction with him, I remember, he said, now architecture is global, but still one should be very conventional in city designing. So that was a British view which came to me, that in spite of knowing the facts of different style of architecture, community is global, but they still stick to their own architecture. So, but as an architect designer myself, I do not hesitate to use various global elements and create something new and different, because I believe more in visual impact rather than ownership impact of that. What I create should be beautiful, should be relevant, rather than being selfish. No, this is mine, this is yours.
True, true, true. So, architect Shefali Jain, she wanted to know about the same thing, which was like, is it since you said that traditional and contemporary architecture can coexist, as we see an example of Louvre, if I'm getting that word right, building in Paris. What is your opinion of doing such things in India? So she wanted to know that
Yeah,
specific project.
it is. I think there was a big debate when architect Pai was designing that, and the glass pyramid which was placed in front of the Louvre. So that glass pyramid became a big architectural debate in the world, and the French architecture was said to be compromised, because a sense of belongingness was, because this is not my style, this is your style. So as soon as you define my style and your style, you will have such debates. As I told you, when Eiffel Tower was built in Paris, the same city, people, I'll just quote one very small story on that. Oscar Wilde used to write about it, and it was told that he was one of the biggest critic, and he used to go to the Eiffel Tower and write some book. So he was told, why do you come to Eiffel Tower? So he used to say, no, this is not Paris architecture. This is the only place where I cannot see Eiffel Tower. So I come here. So, it was under a lot of criticism. And that criticism actually was slowly adopted by the people, and finally it became the face of the city. When Pai was experimenting the glass pyramid in Louvre, as you said, a big debate came that this glass is not the material which French has been using in their buildings, and the pyramid will spoil the backdrop of the Louvre Palace. This is something which was debated, but now this is appreciated, because it had its own creative impact. Creativity takes certain amount of time for it to be realized. One is an instantaneous impact, which is governed by the convention and the thought process earlier. But when you create something, it takes certain time to create its own thought process. So in India, if I have to do something, now what is being done, I was on one of the NDTV debates, which was discussing the central vista being done in front of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. And it's a big debatable project for most of the architects fraternity. I think this is one of the biggest debate happening, that why this. So I was the biggest advocate of this fact, that do not change the Luton model. If you want to create something, we can create something elsewhere. But finally, what will happen is something would be created, like the Parliament House building, which is coming up. A new form is being given to it. It is criticized today, but probably with the time passing, when it will be built, things would get changed. I was doing the Mansingh statue in front of Albert Hall, Jaipur. Like you said, the glass pyramid in front of this. So I created a pedestal. And when the pedestal was halfway, there was big newspaper debate happening. Why this? You are spoiling the view of the Albert Hall. And I requested the chief minister that let's go to the site and see whether we are able to do it or not. So if you stand behind a tree, you will spoil the view. But when you see the panorama, you don't spoil the view. So if you just stand behind the pyramid and see Louvre, you might miss it. If you stand behind a statue, you might miss the Albert Hall. But when you see the panorama, it is all there. So new additions are, it is like changing your hairstyle. You have been accustomed to see you in a particular way for lifelong. And suppose tomorrow you change your hairstyle totally, it will take some time for you to realize what you are. So that's the same thing in architecture. So the pyramid in Louvre was realized with the span of time, and so are various other structures.
Yes, I think I couldn't agree much more, because I remember that while being in Petra, if I stand behind the treasury, the entire view changes. But if I'm standing right in front of the treasury, I get a
Yes.
beautiful panoramic view of the entire treasury, which is actually the heart of the Petra.
Yeah.
So I completely, it makes sense to me now. From for not being an architect, I can completely relate to it. Very well
Fine.
explained, sir. Yes, very well explained. So before we continue with our session, I just wanted to brief my audience over here. Normally we have the session for 1 hour, but I would like to thank sir that he has been kind enough, and he has said that timing is not a problem. He would want to take as many questions as it comes from the audience and make it as an interactive session. So that's why we are taking up the session questions in between. Normally in an hour we finish our session, but sir is saying that we will not hurry up and we will take up the questions of our fellow architects and interior designers. So sir would like to thank you on behalf of everyone.
Thank you.
So we do have a few questions. We'll come up to the questions. Before that, I think Miss Yadav wanted to ask you a question. So she was raising, her hand was raised. So Miss Yadav, are you there with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, you wanted
Okay.
to ask her a question. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. First, I would say that's being very generous of you, sir, for sparing your time. I really wanted to ask, sir, that we have discussed about technology, we have talked about the vistas, we have talked about the skillful labors being local yet global. Sir, but what is your say in the fact that there are going to be major changes post-COVID in the designing attributes? I mean, what sort of changes you expect in urban areas? Because these are going to certainly impact the lifestyle of people.
Yes. Very good question, and very apt for the moment, I would say. COVID
Thank
has, I hope it's temporary, but whatever it is, as it is today, the impact which is going to take place into architecture and creation of buildings is is something very important. To technology is going to play an important part, and I think L&T as a team would really appreciate this, that we are going towards more touchless operations in buildings, and everything should be related to sensing based, automation based, so that minimum interface happens. For example, I was just discussing in one of the builders conference, and I gave an example when the plague happened in Britain, in London plague, the famous London plague. The style of designing residences changed for two reasons. One, earlier there was a direct entry into the house. Then they created an anti-room at the entry of the house, and a closet for changing of their shoes and clothes and hats and coats. Now this epidemic created an impact on the planning of the houses. So probably if you think, I don't see that if when you have a entry to the houses, you might come up with a powder room in the entry lobby, more apt for washing your hands and clearing your feet, etc. So such changes, such human values which has come into our culture would be reflected into the plans which we are doing. So architectural planning would certainly be changing post-COVID. Technology, as I was telling you, and I did some very nice experiments in my World Trade Park, which are very innovative, and I'd like to share on this platform. For example, the air conditioning part. Now, what I did is, the air conditioning is quite based on the circulation of the air, and you take the air back, in the return air is treated and sent back into the spaces. So the same air keeps on rotating. In post-COVID, when I was opening World Trade Park, I evolved a new technology in which I thought that in the air handling rooms, I created ultraviolet curtains of ultraviolet light, so that the air has to pass through a certain time through the ultraviolet rays, so that when they are back into the space, they are disinfected. Now, this was something very unique, and I was pretty sure that my air circulation has actually, using an ultraviolet lighting into my AHU rooms and in my air conditioning plants, has really helped me to disinfect the air. I sprayed the disinfectant and the sanitizers, which were human use certified, into those rooms and clearing those air. So this technology came into picture post COVID. A very nice example, like your lift buttons. We are switching over to voice control buttons. We don't have to public touch. So minimal touch is going to be the theory ahead in life. Escalator belts. You touch that belt. Many times people need to take support on escalators. But as soon as you touch the belts, you are subject to some transfer of viruses or bacteria. So what we devised, and I innovated a new thing in which at the bottom of the escalator belt, I created a sanitizer belt in which the belt passes through it and gets sanitized. So wherever you touch the belt, you will find that it is perfect in its and fit to use as if it is sanitized for you. So technology changes are going to happen post-COVID. Mental changes are going to happen. Your interaction with people, probably you might come out. बहुत से लोगों के घरों में अभी भी जूते लेके घर में नहीं जाते हैं, लेकिन कुछ घरों में वो चीजें चालू हो गई थी कि भाई shoes are allowed in, because we were more Western into culture, old Indian culture, we were not doing that. But probably now I see many of my clients coming with this requirement to have a shoe rack in front of their houses. They don't want the shoes to be inside. They need a washroom at the entry. So all these things, hygiene and sanitization would become the governing factor of your lifestyle designing. And lifestyle designing would be governed with hygiene. COVID or no COVID, this mindset will continue. Even if we are over with COVID pandemic, the risk of re-entering into any such pandemic would live in our minds and hearts. And that would certainly create an impact for all the architects to design hygiene-oriented houses, hygiene-oriented buildings, and it will become one of the mandatory checklist or the client brief, I would say, that you have to create a hygiene and a public safe buildings. Whether houses or public places or anything will be subject to such mindset. Innovations will have to be done to make it COVID safe.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Ms. Yadav, for asking this question.
I hope I have answered, Ms. Yadav.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And sir, just since Ms. Yadav brought the COVID and the pandemic topic, I also would not want to miss this opportunity to request you whenever we have a time to play the beautiful poem which you have written on the pandemic.
Yeah, I'll ask my team if they can upload it right away.
Whenever, yes. So I'm
so
sure that is going to be quite motivational, although it is little off track. Just since the pandemic thing came up, so that is a poem which I'm sure all our audience would love to hear. I personally have heard it, so
thank you for. It was pretty popular on the Facebook and all,
yes.
but yes, I appreciate your request for that, and I hope they play it.
So are they playing right now? If
they play right now. You want right now? You want to play it in the end?
Any whatever is convenient.
And,
so we
and,
can.
and continue with your questions.
Okay. I think Ms. Weber has raised his hand. Mr. Weber. Mr. Weber, are you there? I think. Okay. Somebody raised
Hello.
their hand. Yeah.
I raise hand for the poem only.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So you would like. So I think, sir. Let's play the poem right now.
Fine.
I think the audio is not there.
Audio is not there. You restarted the audio.
Okay. I think till then we can just take a few
You can
questions.
close the other question by the time they're
Yeah,
setting it up.
no problem. Miss Srimati has a question. Miss Srimati, would you like to ask her a question? I do see question in the chat box. Okay. Miss Srimati, are you there? Or maybe
Yeah,
I'll read
hi.
the. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, loud and clear.
Uh, Good evening. I was just wondering, I had seen your work at Punjab and, near the Jallianwala Bagh. I was totally feeling as if I was in an old heritage site. It was really good. But I was just wondering, you were speaking about bringing in those onion domes at Russia here. It's my humble opinion. Would it be rather incongruous to trying to fit in something which doesn't exactly gel in with the landscape of our country? Thank you, sir.
Yeah. That's the debate which will always continue, and very well raised. This point is very sensitive. We should maintain our character, no doubt in it, but at the same time, we should not draw boundaries for creativity. So I don't say bring the onion dome as it is. What I was trying to say is that if I have to create some element of onion domes to be brought in here in some form, a new experimentation can be done, not cut, copy, paste, but using certain elements which may appeal better in a new form. Because many elements create a picture in totality. And my whole idea was putting is that we can use elements of the world and create something new. So it's not that use them as it is. And I 100% appreciate this point that we should be sensitive to the character of our place. That's what I refer to what Prince Charles told, that we are a global community, but we should always stick to our own conventional architecture of the place. Agreed. But we should not hesitate in experimenting new things and creating something new. So probably when onion domes were built, they had something borrowed from Gothic, something borrowed from Mongolian, something borrowed from something, and they created the onion domes there. So characters and guiding principles of any architectural creations can have a subconscious influence in the designer's mind from various places to create something new. So probably that was my idea, not getting a cut copy paste of it.
True, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, Shefali, your voice is not audible.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Of heritage buildings. Because here in Chennai, Madras, where I stay, a lot of heritage buildings are lost, unfortunately. So, is it not necessary that architects, as you, should possibly form some kind of a organization to see the old heritage sites are maintained? Especially here, pre-colonial and colonial buildings are totally lost and demolished, bringing in skyscrapers and multiplexes. Thank you so much, sir.
Uh, Very interesting, and I'm very happy that I'm also involved in Tamil Nadu. I'm doing one of the oceanarium at the Mahabalipuram, and if you see Chennai as a history, you had a lot of British influence into architecture there. But at the same time, just 50 kilometers down Chennai, you have the great, unique architecture of Mahabalipuram, and Tamil Nadu itself is a very rich in architecture. But if you see that you asked me that we should propagate some formation of an organization to conserve these, there are a number of NGOs which are actually working for conservation of heritage architecture. But the fact is, architecture is the person who actually break the rules. I'm very sad to make this statement, but that is also the good point of architecture. Because unless you break the rules, you do not create something new. So you are in this we are in this profession where we try and imagine new things. That is why I've been trying to stress in this conversation that heritage and the character of the place should always be predominant, but that should not be a deterrent to experimentation of new buildings. That is why I always say the urban character on the streets should always be the heritage value. But say, I'll just give you an example like London. You have the Shad there. You have so many modern glass buildings coming in London. But that doesn't mean the hardcore London architecture has been compromised. We should learn to coexist, but coexist in style. Coexist in which we are able to maintain our heritage and start adding new elements and new buildings to it also. So it is creating a synergy of platform. We should create a beautiful synergy where the importance of our heritage, now in Chennai, the colonial and pre-colonial and colonial impact is predominant. Now colonial buildings should be conserved as they are. New colonial building styles, buildings should also come up. But that doesn't mean between two colonial buildings you can't create a glass tower. Skyscrapers has now more or less become a symbol of advancement. And a human nature is that there is always a rat race for being advanced. So we try and easily copy. It certainly has a land value because going vertically up saves a huge amount of space usage which comes into picture. So I would say that you should learn the art of synergizing both and carrying both of them together. So it is the urban architects whose responsibility is that when they are designing and approving buildings, they should see that the synergy is being maintained. If I just do up all those buildings, probably I'll forget the colonial or the Chennai original architecture. So I should make sure that while approving such buildings, I should have certain colonial elements of the Chennai architecture coming on those streets. As far as organization is concerned, I really see that there is a vacuum because most of the NGOs who are working on this are not very, very effective. So they are more momentary effect is done by some objections here and there. But if it is really worked out in a very professional and an organized way, it might give better results.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we will take the questions from the audience a little later because now we've been talking about contemporary design, we've been talking about heritage design, we've been talking about global design. And sir, in all the projects which you've shared with us, it's clearly shown that your inclination towards art is seen in most of the projects, you know, be it Patrika Gate or creation of Heritage Walk at Golden Temple. So sir, according to you, how important is art in designing buildings?
Art is, it is the soul. Art is the soul. Because I always say architects, interior designers, civil engineers, they are the messengers of God. Because anything created by nature exists on this earth. And then after that, anything created by architects, engineers exist on this earth. So they are messengers of God. And if you see nature, it is full of art. So art is the soul of any creation. We should never forget that if I just create, just imagine I don't see anything artless. Art means creating something which has a definite value of creative intellect in it. Even a straight line can be an art. So art has a multiple definition. And when art is missing, that means it is a building which is a computer generated building, cut, copy, paste, blocks, basic forms. So that will make our life monotonous. And we are creating an environment. And I think COVID has taught one thing to everybody, that life is precious. And you should not waste every moment of this life to enjoy it. So the environment which we create around us should be full of happiness. And art is the carrier of happiness. Art communicates to you in various ways, be it color, be it paintings, be it sculpturing, be it forms, be it shapes, be it scapes, be it landscapes. An artistic attitude and creation of art always imparts the soul to a dead body. So if I create a structure without a soul, it is creating architecture without art. Architecture is nothing but a reflection of art, which has to be really, because most of the architectural field people just limit their exercise to drawing lines, creating drawings. Creation of drawing is just a mechanical aspect of it. Creation of thought is the creative aspect of it. And creation of thought is nothing but an expression of art. So I would say art is the soul. No building, no creation without art has any value. And art is everything.
Very well said, sir. Thank you so much. And for those who don't know, apart from being an architect, sir himself is a very good artist and also a sculptor. He can sketch anything, anytime. So yes, we do not have time. Otherwise, we would have requested sir to just draw some sketch for us over here. But yes, maybe some other time. If sir
Sure,
could
sure.
show it later.
You can always have a live session in which people can ask me to design their rooms or buildings, and I'll sketch in front of them in a 3D format and give it to you right here.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm sure the audience would be very excited and waiting for that kind of a session. We shall
Yeah.
soon have that. Sir, coming to our next question, sir. Before that, so we did speak about how Hawa Mahal, which was a modern design years ago, now is a heritage design, and you know that they both coexist, and you know we've spoken about all that they go hand in hand, they coexist. But sir, according to you, are there any major roadblocks when it comes to bridge the two diagonally opposite concepts, such as maybe the futuristic construction and the heritage? Are there any roadblocks?
Yeah, there are. One, the biggest roadblock is the mindset of people. Because as I was telling you, the importance of skill requirement in heritage structure makes it less financially viable at times. And you find the easiest route out. So the roadblock is in the mindset and about the ease of construction. So ease of construction and the skilled manpower availability makes it a bit uh, restricted in experimenting out. So these are the roadblocks in coexisting. What happens is, like one of your panelists, one of your architects asked this question, that why bring the onion domes here? So, you know, experimenting to new things and not maintaining your character is always difficult because it leads to changing convention. So the roadblock exists that when I propose a building which is contemporary or modern, probably in a heritage atmosphere, then I'm not doing justice to it. But if I'm developing a new area in which I give new and modern buildings and create a new environment there, then probably, so both the architecture can go together provided they are put to the use at the right location. So what experiment you're doing where is important. Suppose in the walled city or the pink city, Jaipur, or the walled city of any city, be it Ahmedabad, be it Delhi, if I do a glass building in front of Red Fort, Delhi, I might not do justice in Chandni Chowk. So the building which I'm doing in Chandni Chowk is quite related to my Red Fort architecture. So the location where you're doing is an important consideration for them, these styles of architecture coexisting. But if I'm doing this building in Gurgaon, or if I'm doing this building in New Jaipur, probably I would not hesitate to use a modern architecture out there. So location and the environment in which we are creating these styles of architecture has a huge importance, and we should never forget it.
Yeah.
Each should not, they should complement each other. They should not demean the value of that architecture. Just imagine when we are doing the Chandni Chowk building, the big mall which I am doing in front of Chandni, in Chandni Chowk, in front of Red Fort. If I would have done a building which is very modern, probably I would have destroyed the heritage there. That is wrong. So we should restrict and we should stop anything, any such experiments. For example, the Luton's Delhi has a Connaught Place style, the Luton architecture. If I would have, now Connaught Place is one good example that the core of the Connaught Place is in completely Luton architecture. But the roads leading to Connaught Place has taken some skyscrapers and modern day buildings. So those buildings, if they were allowed inside the Connaught Place or in the same ring, it would have destroyed the architecture there. So we should keep a very nice balance between the two.
True. Completely agree, sir. I mean, the inner circle is not filled with any of the modern buildings. Only the outer ring of the Connaught Places with the Statesman building and all. I completely agree to what you're saying. Sir, we'll come to our last question since we've been speaking a lot about modern and contemporary and heritage architecture. And also, sir, you've shared your ideas on how modern elements can be used in heritage structure. I would still like to invite our product design manager, Mr. Chakravarti, and he would like to ask a question. So I would
Sure.
like to invite Mr. Chakravarti.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, I'm Chakravarti Kajna. I work with Switchgear R&D of Larsen & Toubro. It's indeed a deep pleasure of mine to see all the work that we have been doing. It's a really great privilege, sir. Sir, just we would like to know from you, like as an switchgear organization, we are fully into industrial solutions. From last 5 years, like we have ventured into this wiring accessories where it consists of switches and all the basic needs of the home. We are catering to the needs of all segments of the market with different ranges that we have. One with the engine range, which is appealing to the economy segment of the market with basic functionality. And secondly, we have entice range, which would be offering a plethora of metallic colors and extended functionality and smart connectors to the mid segment of the market. Now, coming to the premium segment, we have an Englaze range, which is having a best-in-class features of antibacterial range and touch switches and everything. So coming to this touch switches, we are about to get into the market with various interface functionalities like remote operation, app-based function, and voice controls. So at this juncture, considering the set of this pandemic across the globe, we would like to seek your suggestion on how we augment our product portfolio in moving further.
Yeah.
Any specific insightful directions would you like to suggest?
Yeah. It's a very, very nice, challenging time to innovate products at this moment. And I remember one of my talk in Limoges, France, in which I was Limoges. I was delivering a lecture in which I told to the switch manufacturer that why don't your R&D works for a switchless one? So it was a bit bold that I'm asking the switch producer to remove the switches from the market and create some switchless homes, which is now getting true. I'm talking of 25 years back. What you've said, you are working for touchless technology. Very good. Your touch switch is getting antibacterial and all. Very nice. But I would like to suggest you a few things. Habits are very important when you design gadgets in houses. So you have a habit of using a switch to open the light. If I say voice controlled switches, very good. This is the future, it will come up. If I want to use a remote, in the end of the day, I have to use and touch the remote also. So I would rather recommend that your research and development wing should do something in which the proximity sensing should be the technology. That I do not go and touch the switch, but I can put a finger in a 1 centimeter proximity from the switch, and each switch can have a sensor, which it just sends the local proximity sensing, and without touching the screen, but in my habit, I have to put my finger near the switch, it goes. So I am looking for a product which can really not change my habit, at the same time safeguard me and improve my systems. Now, because automations, as I was telling you, building is now machines. So automation and sensing technologies virtually come into picture. You would have to interface all this with artificial intelligence and the IoT based systems, because Internet of Things and artificial intelligence is going to play a very important role in gadgetry systems and automation systems inside houses, buildings, or commercial spaces or public spaces anywhere, where you will have to actually custom made artificial intelligence to be built into your system designing and creating local brains. Like I would like that in a house where a command is given either by voice or by proximity switching, but a lot of mood realizations can be taken place by artificial intelligence development of the type of usage which a person does of his room or his place, and which can be built on in the usage criteria. For example, if it has a history of, for example, if you see your laptops and iPads, as soon as you go to your iPad, that artificial intelligence built in that immediately knows what are you searching for. It gives you a pop-up for that. It knows what are your habits, and it has developed that artificial intelligence package into your computer systems to respond to your needs. So the same automation which is happening on the iPads and your iPhones today would actually be transformed into the building operations also. So this journey from this physical operation to an artificial intelligence based operation is going to be important. So my suggestion to you is that a company like yours should lead the show in getting artificial intelligence and IoT based systems into the gadgetries which you are using, be it switches, be it automation controls, be it voice controls. And this proximity switch, which I am actually longing for, that if I have to open, because it's not I always opening. Suppose in my office I have a switchboard, somebody else will also come and touch it. And then next moment I go and touch it. And his voice control may not be recognized. So if it is just a proximity touch, if this is a switch and I just bring the finger near and take it out, that would do the magic. That's one suggestion which I have for you. And switches are actually, I'm thinking more like a designer at this moment. They are my art objects. So creating custom based switches which can gel into my art of the place can be the solution of gelling into that, because probably a same styles which is being used in every room might not be. And many companies like you and others have actually come into this, because now all your switch gear etc has gone very intelligent. But again, I'd like to get art into this also. So you can create some artful switches in which you create some uh, Gothic style, Roman style, Victorian style, Mughal style, Jaipur style. So I would suggest that give me a palette of things in which technology is there and art is there. So become a merger of art and technology.
Thank you so much, sir. That is a very elaborated and crystal clear insights that you had provided to us. It will really help us in moving further and having a perspective of the future and appealing to the users. Thank you so much, sir. It's a really pleasure to. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, sir, I think the most awaited moment for your poem.
Pardon, I could hear you. I think it's a long session.
Yeah, so we'll wind it up with your poem, sir. If it can be played.
I'll ask them to load the poem if the sound is available.
Or maybe if we could, if it's not too much to ask, if we could hear it from you in case if it cannot be played.
Yeah, it's my voice only. They recorded in my voice.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes, I know it is your voice, sir. So yes, a lot of people did message that.
Can you start?
I think it's not audible. No problem, sir.
Okay, I think there's some sound problem. I will like to be excused on that.
So I think we were only able to hear it when you were on unmute from your microphone.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's not a
Well,
problem,
that
sir. We will. I will.
we'll listen to the poem some next.
Yeah. No problem. Yes, sir.
It was a nice.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I would request. I would just like to call Sameer, sir. He would just like to say a few words, and then we will end this session. It was quite insightful, sir.
Thank you.
Anoop ji, this was an extremely insightful session. In fact, we had a very good info on our heritage, culture, art, design, and how all things can be taken together to the next level. I would say that you also have given us a lot of suggestions about what we need to do so that we are able to see to this situation and take it from about the switches, about the touchless, and what I think, if I understand well, the proximity what you are talking about can be made through a gesture control switches. If we are
Yes.
able to do that, we'll work on this surely and then come back to you.
So
And
nice.
let me tell you, sir, the way we went through the Harminder Saab, Chandni Chowk, maybe we was to totally left in awe. Uh, it was extremely well, and it was really delightful to have it. And I'm very sure all the audience who were there would have enjoyed it thoroughly. Thank you very much for spending so much time with us.
Thank you. Thank you all. And thanks to all of you for interacting with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Good
so
night.
much, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to the audience too.
Thanks to that.